So when you think of BMW, you think of cars, right? The ultimate driving machine. But what if I told you that the company famous for its cars, well, they never actually wanted to build them in the first place?
No, I'm serious. Think about it for a second. The roaring engines, those sleek designs, that iconic kidney grille, all of it was basically an accident, a plan B. This wasn't some grand master plan. It was more like history playing a really weird and really fast joke on them. You see, the company we know as BMW, their eyes weren't on the road at all. They were looking up, way, way up. Their entire destiny, their whole reason for being, was to build the absolute best aircraft engines the world had ever seen.
Okay, so let's dive into this. To really get what BMW is all about, you've got to forget the car for a minute. We've got to start with the plane.
I mean, it's right there in the name, Bayerische Motorenwerke. That's Bavarian Motor Works. Notice it doesn't say car works. They made motors. And their very first product was an absolute masterpiece of engineering, the BMW 3A. This thing was a high-altitude aircraft engine that gave German planes a massive edge, delivering full power way up where the air gets thin, and other engines would just choke out.
And that brings us to one of the biggest myths in the entire car world. You know the logo, right? Everyone thinks that blue and white roundel is a spinning propeller set against a blue sky. It's a fantastic story, but it's just not true. The reality is actually much simpler. It's just the blue and white colors of the Bavarian flag, where the company is from. So where did the propeller idea come from? Well, it was just a really, really clever piece of marketing from an ad they ran way back in the 1920s. So BMW is on top of the world, right? They are the absolute leaders in the sky. But that high-flying success, it was all about to come crashing down. And it all came down to a single piece of paper. After World War I, the Treaty of Versailles was signed, and buried inside it was a clause that was just devastating for BMW. It said that German companies were forbidden, completely banned, from producing aircraft or aircraft engines. Just like that, in an instant, the company's entire reason for existence was now illegal. This wasn't just some business setback. You have to understand, this was an existential threat. Imagine being the best in the world at one specific thing, and then suddenly being told you can never ever do it again. The company was staring at total collapse. So what do? You're a motor company with no purpose. How on earth do you survive that? Well, they pivoted, and they pivoted hard. First, they just started making industrial engines for anything that moved. Trucks, boats, you name it. Then, in 1923, they came out with their first motorcycle, the R32. And this wasn't just any bike. It was an engineering revolution. That brilliant boxer engine design was so balanced, so reliable, that it became a BMW signature for the next 100 years. And finally, in 1928, they kind of just stumbled into the car business. Not by designing their own car, but by buying another company that did. You have to remember, none of this was some grand strategy. It was all about pure, desperate survival. So, against all odds, BMW had survived. They'd found this accidental success, first on 2 wheels and now on 4. But history wasn't finished with them yet. And the next chapter would be the darkest one of all. So as we get into the 1930s and 40s, with the rise of the Nazi Party, BMW's original mission, building those incredible aero engines, was suddenly back in demand for the German rearmament effort. The company benefited hugely from this period. And this is a part of its past that BMW itself now fully acknowledges, as its factories used forced laborers, prisoners of war, and even inmates from concentration camps to meet the intense production demands. And then, after the war ended, it was like a recurring nightmare. History repeated itself. The Allied forces banned BMW from production again. Their factories were dismantled. The company that had somehow survived one ban was now facing a second one. And this time, it really truly looked like this was the end. I mean, BMW was on its knees. They were literally making kitchen pots and pans, building bicycles, just to keep the lights on. The company was closer to completely disappearing than it had ever been. But what happens next? It's honestly one of the greatest comeback stories you'll ever hear. By 1959, the company was just bleeding money. They were on the verge of bankruptcy. And at the big annual meeting that December, a deal was on the table to sell the whole company to its biggest rival, Daimler-Benz. The contracts were basically ready to be signed. It was a done deal. Was this it? The end of BMW? It really seemed inevitable. In just a matter of minutes, the brand would be gone forever, just swallowed up by its competitor.
But then, something absolutely incredible happened. A group of small shareholders and factory workers, they just stood up and started protesting. They refused to let their company be sold. And all that passion, that raw emotion, it moved one man, a major shareholder, the industrialist Herbert Quandt. And at the very last second, he rejected the sale. Not only that, he doubled down, investing his own massive fortune to save the company. He took a huge gamble on BMW when literally nobody else on Earth would.
And you know what? Quant's gamble paid off. Big time. His investment funded a whole new line of cars, the legendary New Class. And they were a massive success. They basically defined what a modern sports sedan was. This headquarters building, which went up in the early 70s, it wasn't just an office building. It was a symbol, a monument to their impossible survival and their incredible rebirth.
So you have to wonder, how did all this chaos, being banned, almost failing, constantly having to pivot, how did that create the brand we know and love today? Well, it forged a philosophy. Because they were forced into a car market they never even wanted to be in, BMW had to find its own unique space. So they decided to focus everything, and I mean everything, on the experience of the person behind the wheel. They obsessed over these silky, smooth, powerful engines. They pioneered lightweight construction to make their cars feel agile and alive. They weren't just building transportation, they were building cars for people who genuinely love to drive. And that's when they found their true identity with that perfect slogan, the ultimate driving machine.
You know, in German, they have a phrase for it, Freude am Fahren. It literally translates to the joy in driving. And this was never just about getting from point A to point B. It was about the feeling, that connection between the driver, the machine, and the road. This whole philosophy, it became their art. So when you step back and look at this whole 100-year journey, you start to realize this story isn't what it seems on the surface. It's not really a straightforward story of success. It's a story of bans, of crises, and of rebirth. Think about it. Twice, the world told them to stop building the very thing they were best at. Twice, they stared extinction right in the face. And twice, they found a new way to not just survive, but to come back even stronger. BMW never ever set out to become the ultimate driving machine. But by being forced off its original path, time and time again, it stumbled into its true destiny. Not up there in the sky, but right here on the open road.